The email from the organ donor registry seemed routine at first. I'd signed up years ago, one of those impulse decisions after watching a documentary about saving lives. I was O-negative, universal donor, and the registry loved people like me. Over the years, I'd gotten occasional updates. Your blood type is needed. Consider donating platelets, that sort of thing. But this email was different. Dear Ms. Harper, we're reaching out regarding an unusual genetic match that appeared in our system. Your donor profile shares remarkable similarities with a deceased donor from 3 years ago. This is extremely rare and medically significant. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to discuss this anomaly. I stared at my laptop screen in my tiny Seattle apartment, confused. A genetic match with a dead person? That didn't make sense. Unless we were related somehow. But I was adopted. I'd never known my birth family, had spent my childhood in foster care before aging out of the system at 18. The idea that I had biological family out there, even dead family, made my chest tight with unexpected emotion. I called the number immediately. Donor registry. This is Patricia. Hi. I received an email about a genetic match. This is Emma Harper. Oh, Ms. Harper, yes. Hold please, I need to transfer you to Dr. Reeves. This is a sensitive matter. A sensitive matter. Great. I was transferred twice more before finally reaching Dr. Reeves, who sounded both excited and nervous. Ms. Harper, thank you for calling so quickly. I need to ask you some questions first. Do you know your biological family history? No. I was abandoned as a baby, raised in foster care. I don't know anything about my birth parents. I see. And you're currently 28 years old, correct? Yes, Dr. Reeves, what's this about? The email said I matched someone deceased. You matched Sophia Moretti. She died 3 years ago from complications of a genetic heart condition. But here's what's extraordinary. Your genetic markers are so similar to hers that you could be siblings. Possibly even twins, though that seems unlikely given the age difference. She was 32 when she died. My world tilted. A sister? A possible twin? How is that possible? I thought the registry just matched blood types. Normally, yes. But Mrs. Moretti's family donated her profile to medical research, and when your updated genetic data was entered last month, you participated in that ancestry DNA study, correct? Our system flagged the match. The similarities are unprecedented. You share 47% of your DNA with her. That's full sibling level. I have a sister. The words felt foreign. Had a sister? Why didn't anyone tell me? Why wasn't I contacted when she was alive? The registry doesn't typically cross-reference for family connections unless there's a medical reason. But Mrs. Moretti's widower has been funding research into her genetic condition, hoping to understand it better, perhaps prevent it in others. When your profile appeared, matching hers so closely, Dr. Reeves paused. Ms. Harper, he's requested to meet you, to understand how this is possible, why you exist in the system but were never part of his wife's known family. Her widower wants to meet me? Yes, his name is Dante Moretti. He's been very generous with the research funding, and he's quite insistent about meeting you as soon as possible. He believes you might have answers about his wife's past. I don't have answers. I don't know anything. Nevertheless, he'd like to speak with you. I can provide his contact information if you're willing. I should have said no. Should have kept my distance from this stranger and his dead wife who might have been my sister. But the chance to learn something, anything, about where I came from was too tempting. Give me his number. I called Dante Moretti that evening, my hands shaking as the phone rang. A man answered on the second ring, his voice deep and cultured with a hint of an Italian accent. This is Dante. Mr. Moretti? This is Emma Harper. The organ donor registry said you wanted to speak with me about your wife's genetic match. Where are you? He interrupted. What city? Seattle. Why? I'm sending a plane. You'll be in New York by morning. We need to talk in person. Wait, I can't just drop everything and fly to New York. I'll compensate you for any lost wages. I'll cover all expenses. But I need to see you. Need to understand how you're connected to Sophia. His voice cracked slightly on her name. Please. She was my entire world. And I've spent 3 years with unanswered questions about her past. You might have answers. Mr. Moretti, I don't know anything about your wife. I was in foster care my whole childhood. I don't have family history. Then we'll find it together. The plane leaves at 6 a.m. from Boeing Field. A car will pick you up at 5. Pack for 3 days. He rattled off an address for the car service. I know this is unusual, but I promise you're safe. I just need to understand. He hung up before I could protest further. I stood in my apartment, staring at my phone, trying to decide if this was incredibly stupid or a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A stranger was sending a private plane to bring me across the country to discuss a dead woman I'd never met but might be related to. Red flags everywhere. But also, a sister. A biological connection. Answers about where I came from. I called my best friend and roommate, Jessica. I need you to know where I'm going just in case I end up murdered or something. That's a hell of an opening. What's going on? I explained the whole bizarre situation. The genetic match, the dead maybe sister, the mysterious widower sending a private plane. Emma, this sounds like the plot of a thriller where you end up dead in a warehouse. I know, but what if she really was my sister? What if I finally get answers about my family? Then you at least tell someone where you're going, keep your phone on, and check in every few hours. And maybe research this Dante Moretti guy before you get on a plane with his people. I spent the next hour Googling. Dante Moretti was easy to find. Billionaire real estate developer, property holdings across the East Coast, philanthropist who'd donated millions to medical research since his wife's death. Photos showed a devastatingly handsome man in his late 30s, with dark hair and sharp features, always in expensive suits, usually looking serious. There were also older photos with Sophia, a beautiful dark-haired woman with warm eyes and a bright smile. They looked happy together, the kind of couple that made you believe in love. Her obituary mentioned her sudden death from a genetic heart defect, leaving behind a heartbroken husband and no children. I found one article that made me pause. It was from a gossip site, published a year after Sophia's death. Moretti's secret. Billionaire investigates wife's hidden past. The article claimed Dante had hired private investigators to look into Sophia's background, suggesting she'd been hiding something. But the article was vague, speculative, based entirely on anonymous sources. Still, it made me nervous. What had Sophia been hiding? And did I really want to get involved? But I thought about spending my whole life wondering, never knowing if I'd had a sister, never understanding where I came from. The not knowing would haunt me forever. At 4:30 a.m., I was showered, packed, and waiting when a black town car pulled up outside my building. The driver was professional and silent, taking my bag and opening the door without making eye contact. The plane was small but luxurious, clearly private, with leather seats and a flight attendant who offered me breakfast and champagne. I'm good with coffee, I said, too nervous to eat. During the 5-hour flight, I tried to sleep but couldn't. My mind raced with possibilities. What if Sophia really had been my sister? Why had we been separated? Why had no one told either of us about the other? We landed at a private airfield outside New York City, where another car was waiting. This time the driver spoke. Mr. Moretti is waiting at his residence. We'll be there in 40 minutes. The residence turned out to be a massive penthouse in Tribeca, the kind of place that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 lifetimes. I was escorted up by building security, my palms sweating as we rode the private elevator to the top floor. The doors opened directly into the penthouse, and I found myself in a space that was elegant but somehow cold. All modern furniture, expensive art, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Manhattan, and standing by those windows, looking out at the city, was Dante Moretti. He turned when he heard me enter, and I felt my breath catch. Photos hadn't done him justice. He was tall, powerfully built, with dark hair and olive skin, but it was his eyes that struck me, dark and intense, currently fixed on me with an expression that was part hope, part suspicion, part something I couldn't identify. Emma Harper. He moved toward me, and I noticed he walked with controlled precision, like someone always aware of his body, always in control. Thank you for coming. You didn't really give me much choice sending a plane. I could have just sent the pilots. The fact that you got on it was your choice. He stopped a few feet away, studying me openly. You look nothing like her. Sophia had dark hair, darker skin. You're fair, blonde. I dye it. My natural color is dark brown. I pulled out my phone, showing him a photo from 2 years ago, when I'd briefly gone back to my natural color. See? His expression shifted, something painful flickering across his face. The shape of your face, your eyes, even your mannerisms, the way you tilt your head when you talk. It's exactly like her. Mr. Moretti, Dante, please. He gestured to a seating area. Can I get you something? Coffee? Water? Answers. I'd like answers. But I sat, perching on the edge of an expensive leather sofa. He poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal pitcher, handing me one before sitting across from me. I'll tell you everything I know. But first, I need you to understand something about Sophia. She was... secretive isn't the right word. Private. She never talked about her childhood, her family, her past before we met. I thought she was just someone who preferred to live in the present. But after she died, you started investigating. He looked surprised. You researched me? Of course I did. A stranger sends a private plane, I'm going to Google him. I sipped the water. The article said you hired investigators. I did. Because after Sophia died, I found discrepancies. Her birth certificate didn't match her social security records. The hospital she claimed to be born at had no record of her. Her parents, the ones she said died when she was young, I couldn't find death certificates. He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. My wife existed for 32 years, and I can't prove she existed before age 18. It's like she appeared fully formed as an adult. You think she was hiding something? I know she was. The question is what, and why? His dark eyes locked on mine. Then your profile appears, matching hers genetically. You're 28, she was 32. You were in foster care, no known family. She had no known family either, or claimed not to. The pieces fit too well to be coincidence. You think we were separated, that someone gave us up, split us apart. I think something happened that made someone erase Sophia's past, and you're part of that past. He pulled out a folder, spreading photos on the coffee table between us. These are the only pictures I found of Sophia before she turned 18. A private investigator tracked down a high school yearbook from a small town in Oregon. I looked at the photos. A teenage girl with dark hair, laughing with friends, looking young and carefree. And she did look like me. Not identical, but similar enough that we could be sisters. The name in the yearbook is Sarah Winters, not Sophia Moretti. Dante continued. But it's definitely her. I'd know my wife anywhere. Sarah Winters. I tested the name. Did you find anything about her family? Parents? Siblings? Nothing. The family vanished after her senior year. No forwarding address, no trace. He gathered the photos. Until you appeared in the donor registry, I had nowhere else to look. But now I have you, and maybe together we can figure out what happened. What if I don't want to know? What if my birth family gave me up for a reason, and digging into it just brings pain? Then you can walk away. I'll have you driven back to the airport, and you'll never hear from me again. He stood, moving back to the windows. But Emma, I spent 3 years loving a woman I barely knew. 3 years building a life with someone who was hiding her entire past. When she died, I lost her twice. Once to death, once to the realization that I never really knew her. Don't you want to know the truth? Don't you want to understand where you came from? I did. God help me, I did. Okay, I'll help you look. But I need something in return. Name it. If we find something terrible, something that explains why we were separated and why Sophia erased her past, you have to promise you won't judge her for it. Whatever she was running from, whatever she was hiding, it doesn't change that she loved you. His expression softened. I know she loved me. That's the one thing I never doubted. But yes, I promise. No judgment. Just answers. He moved to sit beside me, and I realized how large he was up close, tall and powerfully built, with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. So where do we start? I asked. We start with Sarah Winters' last known address, a small town called Riverside, Oregon. I've had investigators look into it, but they found nothing. Maybe you'll see something they missed. Maybe someone will talk to you who wouldn't talk to them. He pulled out his phone. We'll leave tomorrow morning. I've already booked us a hotel near Riverside. We'll stay as long as it takes to find answers. You're assuming I'm staying in New York. I'm hoping you will. At least for a few days while we plan our approach. His dark eyes held mine. I know this is a lot. I know I'm asking you to disrupt your life for questions about people you never knew. But Emma, You're the first real lead I've had in 3 years. Please, give us a chance to understand. I thought about my life in Seattle. My dead-end job at a coffee shop, my tiny apartment, the lack of connection or purpose that had been bothering me for months. I thought about the possibility of finally knowing where I came from, of understanding the first 28 years of unanswered questions. 3 days, I said. I'll give you 3 days. If we don't find anything in that time, I'm going home. 3 days is all I need. Thank you. He extended his hand, and when I shook it, I felt the strength in his grip, the calluses that suggested he did more than sign checks and attend meetings. I'd agreed to help a billionaire widow investigate his dead wife's mysterious past. What could possibly go wrong? Dante set me up in a guest room that was larger than my entire Seattle apartment. Marble bathroom, king-size bed, a view of the city that probably cost millions. It felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. There are clothes in the closet, he said from the doorway. I had my assistant order basics in your size. If you need anything else, just ask. You had someone buy me clothes? How did you know my size? I'm thorough. At my expression, he added, security footage from the airport. I had someone estimate. If anything doesn't fit, we'll get it corrected. That's either very efficient or very creepy. Both, probably. He smiled slightly, the first genuine warmth I'd seen from him. I'm used to controlling situations, making sure everything runs smoothly. It's how I built my company, but I realize it can be intense for people who aren't used to it. You mean normal people who don't have assistants buying clothes for strangers? Yes, that. He leaned against the doorframe. Emma, I want you to understand something. I'm not trying to control you or make you uncomfortable. I just want answers about Sophia so badly that I'm probably overstepping boundaries. Tell me if I do. I'll back off. Noted. But also, thank you for the clothes. I only packed for 3 days. You're welcome. Dinner is at 7 if you're hungry. My housekeeper Marie makes excellent pasta. He moved to leave, then paused. And Emma? I'm glad you're here, even if we don't find anything. At least I'm not searching alone anymore. After he left, I explored the room, finding the closet filled with expensive basics, jeans that probably cost more than my monthly rent, soft sweaters, even shoes in my exact size. Everything fit perfectly. It should have been thoughtful. But instead it felt like being a doll, being dressed by someone who could afford to outfit strangers on a whim. I changed into leggings and a sweater, then spent the afternoon researching Riverside, Oregon. It was tiny, population under 5,000, economy based on logging and small farms. The kind of town where everyone knew everyone, which meant if Sarah Winters had lived there, someone would remember. At 7, I found my way to the dining room, where Dante was already seated at a long table that could easily fit 12. He'd changed into casual clothes, dark jeans and a black Henley that showed off his athletic build, and looked more approachable than he had in his suit earlier. Marie outdid herself, he said as the housekeeper appeared with plates of homemade ravioli and a sage butter sauce. She's been feeding me since Sophia died, making sure I don't forget to eat. Mr. Moretti forgets constantly, Marie said with obvious affection. She was in her 60s with kind eyes and an Italian accent. He works too much, sleeps too little. Maybe you being here will remind him he's human. Marie thinks I need taking care of, Dante said after she left. She's probably right. We ate in surprisingly comfortable silence for a few minutes before I asked, what was Sophia like? I mean, I know she was your wife and you loved her, but what was she really like as a person? He set down his fork, considering. She was light. That's the word that always comes to mind. She made everything brighter just by existing. She loved art, spent hours in galleries looking at paintings. She baked cookies for the building staff at Christmas. She cried during sad movies and laughed too loud at restaurants. She sounds wonderful. She was. But she was also guarded about certain things. She never wanted children. Said she couldn't, but wouldn't explain why. She had nightmares sometimes, would wake up terrified but refuse to talk about them. And she was paranoid about security, always checking locks, always aware of her surroundings. He picked up his wine. At the time, I thought it was just her personality. Now I wonder if she was afraid of something from her past catching up to her. Or someone. Yes. or someone. He met my eyes. That's one reason I'm so insistent on finding answers. If Sophia was running from something dangerous, and you're her biological sister, you might be in danger too. I hadn't considered that. You think whatever she was hiding could affect me? I think if someone went to the trouble of erasing her past, splitting you two apart, there was a reason. And reasons like that don't usually go away just because time passes. He leaned forward. That's also why I want you here, where I can keep you safe. My security is extensive. No one gets to you here. I'm not in danger. No one even knows I exist in relation to Sophia. They will. The moment we start asking questions in Riverside, the moment we dig into Sarah Winter's past, people will notice. And if those people don't want that past exposed... He let the sentence hang. I pushed food around my plate, appetite suddenly gone. You're saying helping you could put me at risk. I'm saying you might already be at risk. And helping me at least means you're protected while we figure out what's going on. His expression was serious. I won't let anything happen to you, Emma. You're the closest connection I have to Sophia. Losing you would be like losing her all over again. After dinner, Dante showed me his study, a room lined with files and photographs, all related to his investigation of Sophia's past. It was obsessive, thorough, and slightly heartbreaking to see how much effort he'd put into understanding the woman he'd married. This is everything I've found, he said, gesturing to the organized chaos. Birth records, school records, employment history, or rather, the lack thereof before she turned 18. It's like she didn't exist before then. I studied the timeline he'd created on a large corkboard. Sarah Winters appeared in Riverside at age 14, living with foster parents who died in a car accident when she was 17. After that, she'd left town, resurfaced in New York at 18, as Sophia Moretti, with forged documents that were good enough to pass casual inspection. How did she get new identity documents? I asked. Money. There are people who specialize in creating new identities. She must have saved up, found the right person, paid them to make her someone else. He pointed to a photo of teenage Sarah. The question is why? What was she running from? And where do I fit in? If we're sisters, why was I in foster care in Washington while she was in foster care in Oregon? That's what we need to find out. He pulled up a chair. I've been thinking about our approach for Riverside. We can't just show up asking questions about Sarah Winters. Small towns protect their own, especially if they think we're trouble. So what's your plan? We pretend to be researchers, doing a documentary or book about foster care in small-town America. Sarah Winters becomes just one case study among many. We interview people, gather stories, and see what we can learn without raising suspicions. That's actually smart. I'm occasionally smart. He smiled. We'll bring recording equipment, make it look official, and you'll do most of the talking. People trust women more, especially in small towns. I'll be the silent producer in the background. You? Silent? I'll believe it when I see it. I can be quiet when necessary. I just usually choose not to be. He closed the file. We leave at 8 a.m. Flight to Portland, then a 2-hour drive to Riverside. We'll check into the hotel, then start with the local library. They usually have archives, yearbooks, local history. It's a good place to start. You've done this before. The investigation thing, I've had to. When you build a business empire, you learn to research thoroughly, to find information people don't want found. His expression darkened. I just never thought I'd use those skills on my own wife. I reached out, touching his hand impulsively. We'll find answers. I promise we'll try. He looked at where my hand rested on his, and something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability mixing with the intensity. Thank you for being here, for caring about this even though Sophia was a stranger to you. She wasn't a stranger. She was my sister. I just didn't know it until now. He turned his hand, squeezing mine. Then we're in this together. For Sophia, for you, for whatever the truth turns out to be. That night, I lay in the too comfortable bed, unable to sleep. My phone buzzed with texts from Jessica. Still alive? Or should I call the police? Still alive. Flying to Oregon tomorrow to investigate mysterious past. This is literally the plot of a thriller. Please don't die. I'll try my best. Is the billionaire hot? I hesitated, then typed, devastatingly. But also grieving and intense and possibly dangerous. So hot. Got it. Be careful. I set down my phone, thinking about Dante. He was attractive, yes, but more than that. He was magnetic in a way that made you want to know him better, to understand what drove him. The way he talked about Sophia showed a depth of feeling that was rare. He'd loved her completely, and her loss had broken something in him. And now I was helping him piece together the mystery of her past, which felt both important and terrifying. Around 2 a.m. I heard movement in the penthouse. Footsteps, then voices, Dante talking to someone. I crept to my door, opening it a crack. Don't care what time it is, Dante was saying into his phone, his voice hard. I need everything you can find on foster care placements in Washington State 28 years ago. Emma Harper was one of them. Find out where she was placed, who her caseworkers were, any records that still exist. A pause then. Because if Emma and Sophia were separated intentionally, someone made that decision. And I want to know who. He hung up, and I quickly closed my door, not wanting him to know I'd been listening. But his words stayed with me. He was already investigating me, digging into my past without asking. It should have felt invasive, but instead I felt oddly grateful that someone cared enough to look. The next morning we flew to Portland on another private jet. Dante spent the flight reviewing his investigation notes, occasionally asking me questions about my childhood. Do you remember anything from before foster care? Any early memories? Just impressions. Being cold. Being hungry. Social workers coming to take me away from somewhere. I shrugged. I was 2 when I entered the system. Most of my early childhood is blank. No memories of siblings? Other children? No, I always thought I was alone. That I'd been abandoned by parents who didn't want me. I looked out the window at clouds. Finding out I might have had a sister, that we were together once. It changes everything. Makes the abandonment feel different. Maybe you weren't abandoned. Maybe you were hidden, protected. He set down his notes. If Sophia was running from something at 14, maybe you were part of what she was running from. Maybe whoever separated you did it to keep you both safe. From what? That's what we're going to find out. Riverside was exactly as I'd imagined. One main street, a few shops, a diner that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1950s. We checked into the town's only hotel, a small place that was clean but basic. Not what you're used to, I observed as Dante looked around our adjoining rooms. I've stayed in worse. When I was building my company, I slept in my car more than once. He dropped his bag. Let's start with the library. Then the diner. Places like that are gossip central. Someone will remember Sarah Winters. The library was tiny, run by a woman in her 70s who introduced herself as Agnes. She was delighted to hear about our documentary project and immediately started pulling old yearbooks and local newspapers. Oh, I remember the Winters girl, Agnes said, laying out materials. Such a sad story. Her foster parents were lovely people, Robert and Martha Hayes. They took her in when she was 14, raised her like their own. Then that terrible accident. What accident? I asked, pulling out my phone to record. Car crash on Highway 20. Black ice, winter of '07. They were coming back from Portland when they lost control. Both killed instantly. Sarah was 17, nearly aged out of the system anyway. Such a tragedy. What happened to Sarah after? Dante asked quietly. She left town. Can't say I blame her. Too many memories, you know? Agnes flipped through a yearbook, stopping on Sarah's senior portrait. She was quiet, kept to herself mostly, but she was kind. I remember her volunteering at the animal shelter, always reading books about art. I stared at the photo. Sarah, Sophia, looked happy in this picture. Young and hopeful, not yet running from whatever came next. Did she have friends? People who might remember her? Agnes thought. Jenny Martinez. They were close, I think. Jenny still lives here, runs the flower shop on Main Street. You might try talking to her. We thanked Agnes and headed to the flower shop, where a woman our age was arranging bouquets. She looked up when we entered, her friendly expression faltering when she saw me. Oh my God, she breathed. Sarah? No, I'm Emma Harper, but I think Sarah and I might be related. Jenny's eyes filled with tears. You look so much like her. I thought For a second, I thought she'd come back. She wiped her eyes. Sorry, it's been 15 years and I still miss her. Can we talk about her? Dante asked gently. We're researching her story for a project. Jenny led us to the back room, where we sat among flowers and potting soil. She pulled out her phone, showing us old photos. Teenage Sarah laughing, Sarah holding a cat, Sarah and Jenny at prom looking young and happy. She was my best friend, Jenny said. But she never talked about her life before the haze took her in. I knew she'd been in other foster homes, that something bad had happened, but she wouldn't discuss it. Said the past should stay buried. Did she ever mention siblings? Family? No, she said she was alone, that she'd always been alone. Jenny looked at me. But you're here and you look like her. So she lied. Or maybe she didn't know about you either. What happened after the haze died? Jenny's expression grew troubled. She changed. Got paranoid, scared. Started talking about needing to disappear, to become someone else. I thought she was just grieving, but she was serious. She asked me to forget her, to never mention her name if anyone came looking. Did anyone come looking? Dante leaned forward, not that I know of. But Sarah was terrified they would. She left town a week after graduation, and I never heard from her again. Jenny's voice broke. I've always wondered if she was okay, if she found peace. And then you show up, looking like her ghost. So tell me, was she okay? Did she find happiness? Dante's expression softened. Yes, she found happiness. She had a good life, loved and was loved. She died peacefully, surrounded by people who cared about her. It wasn't entirely true. Sophia had died in a hospital, heart giving out too fast for goodbyes. But it was kinder than the truth. Jenny cried, and I held her hand, feeling the weight of Sophia's absence, the hole she'd left in people's lives. One more question, I said. Did Sarah ever mention where she was before the haze? What foster home she came from? She mentioned a place once. Called it the House in the Woods. Said it was in Washington, somewhere near the coast. But she wouldn't give details. Just said it was bad. Really bad. Jenny met my eyes. If you're her sister, if you were there too, maybe you should leave it buried like she did. But I couldn't. Not now. Not when we were this close to understanding. We left Jenny with our contact information and headed back to the hotel. Dante immediately got on the phone, speaking to his investigators, requesting searches for foster homes in coastal Washington, places that might have had both Sarah and me. We're getting closer, he said after hanging up. I can feel it. Closer to what? What if we don't like what we find? Then at least we'll know the truth. Isn't that better than wondering forever? I wasn't sure it was, but it was too late to turn back now. Dante's investigator called back while we were having dinner at the local diner. I watched his expression change as he listened, going from interested to grim to something darker that made my stomach clench. He ended the call and set down his phone carefully, like it might explode. They found it. The House in the Woods, foster home run by a couple named Richard and Susan Chen, licensed from 1994 to 1998, then abruptly shut down by the state. Why was it shut down? Investigation into abuse allegations. The records are sealed, but my investigator has connections. He pulled up an email on his phone. Emma, you were placed there at 6 months old. Sarah arrived 2 years later at age 4. You were both there until the state removed all the children in 1998. My hands shook. I was there for 2 years? With her? Until you were 2.5. Then you were separated. You to a different foster home in Seattle, Sarah to another home in Portland. The records don't explain why you were split up, just that it was deemed necessary for your safety. Safety from what? The Chens. They were never formally charged, but the investigation notes mention psychological manipulation, isolation, and concerning behavioral control methods. Whatever happened in that house was bad enough that the state not only shut it down, but made sure the children who'd been there were separated and placed as far from each other as possible. I felt sick, so Sarah and I were together until I was 2. She would have been 4, old enough to remember. Yes, which might explain why she erased her past so thoroughly. She was protecting herself from those memories. Dante reached across the table, taking my hand. Emma, I understand if you want to stop here. We know now why you were separated, why Sophia changed her identity. We don't need to dig deeper into what actually happened. No, I need to know. My voice was steadier than I felt. If I lived through something terrible, even if I don't remember it, I deserve to know what it was. And maybe understanding will help me understand why I am the way I am. What do you mean? I'd never told anyone this. I have nightmares sometimes. Always the same one. Being in a dark place, hearing screaming, feeling terror but not knowing why. My therapist says it's probably early childhood trauma manifesting, but I've never known what trauma. Now I do. Dante's hand tightened on mine. We'll find out what happened, but we do it carefully, and the moment it becomes too much, we stop. Your mental health is more important than my need for answers. What if I need the answers too? What if not knowing is worse than knowing? Then we'll face it together. The next morning, we drove to the coast of Washington, to a small town called Hollow Creek, where the Chen foster home had been located. The town was even smaller than Riverside, more isolated, with thick forest pressing in from all sides. The house is still standing, Dante said, reading from his phone as he drove. Abandoned since 1998. The property's been in legal limbo. The state seized it but never sold it. My investigator got us permission to walk through. If you think you can handle it, I can handle it. The house sat at the end of a long dirt road, surrounded by towering pines that blocked out most of the sunlight. It was a large Victorian structure that must have been beautiful once, but now sagged with neglect. Peeling paint, broken windows, a porch that looked ready to collapse. This is where I lived for 2 years, I whispered as we parked. We don't have to go in. Yes, we do. The front door was unlocked, hanging crooked on broken hinges. Inside, the house smelled of mold and decay. Dust covered everything, and evidence of animals having nested in corners. But beneath the neglect, you could see what it had been. A large home with multiple bedrooms, clearly designed for housing many children. The report said there were 8 children here when it was shut down, Dante said, reading from his phone. All removed the same day in what was described as an emergency extraction. We moved through rooms slowly. A kitchen with a massive table where children must have eaten together. A living room with a fireplace and water-stained walls. Upstairs, a long hallway of small bedrooms, each barely big enough for a twin bed. Which one was mine? I wondered aloud. According to the floor plan in the file, the youngest children were kept on the 3rd floor. Dante pointed to a narrow staircase. Emma, you don't have to... But I was already climbing, drawn by something I couldn't explain. The 3rd floor was an attic space converted into a dormitory. 4 cribs against the walls, small windows that barely let in light. And on one wall, someone had painted a mural. I stopped, staring at it. A garden full of flowers, bright and cheerful, completely at odds with the dark space, and in the corner, painted in a child's hand, for Emma and the babies. Love, Sarah. She painted this, I breathed. For me, when she was 4 years old. Dante stood beside me, his expression soft. She tried to make it better for you. Even then, even at that age, she was protecting you. I traced the painted flowers, and suddenly I was crying. For the sister I'd never known. For the childhood we'd both lost. For the love she'd tried to give me in the only way she could. Dante pulled me into his arms, holding me while I sobbed against his chest. It's okay. I've got you. You're safe. She loved me. We were separated and she never knew what happened to me. But she loved me enough to paint me flowers in a terrible place. Yes, she did. He stroked my hair, and I think that's why she could never talk about her past. Because remembering this place meant remembering leaving you behind. We spent another hour in the house, finding other traces of the children who'd lived there. Carved names in door frames, drawings hidden in closets. Evidence that kids had tried to make the best of a bad situation. But we found nothing that explained what specific abuse had occurred, what had been terrible enough to warrant emergency removal. As we were leaving, an elderly woman appeared on the dirt road, walking with a cane and a small dog. She stopped when she saw us. You're not supposed to be here, she called. This is private property. We have permission from the state, Dante said, showing her documentation on his phone. We're researching the foster home that was here, the Chen place. She spat the name. About time someone looked into that horror. Did you know the Chens? I asked, moving closer. I lived next door until they forced me to sell. I'm Margaret Wells. I used to hear those children crying at night, see them standing in windows looking so sad. She squinted at me. You one of the kids who was kept there? Yes, but I was too young to remember. I'm trying to understand what happened. Margaret's expression softened. Come to my house. It's just down the road. I'll tell you what I know. Her house was small but warm, filled with photos of grandchildren and the smell of baking bread. She made us tea and settled into her armchair, the little dog curling in her lap. The Chens seemed nice at first, she began. Said they wanted to help children, give them a good home. But something was wrong from the start. The kids were too quiet, too obedient. They'd stand in the yard like little statues, not playing, not running around like children should. What did the Chens do to them? Dante asked gently. I don't know exactly. The children weren't allowed to talk about it. But I'd hear things at night, crying, sometimes screaming. And once I saw Richard Chen put a little girl in the shed out back. She stayed there all night. For punishment, he said. She was maybe 5 years old. I felt sick. Did you report it? Many times. But the Chens were clever, always had explanations. Said the children had special needs, required firm discipline. The caseworkers believed them. Margaret's eyes filled with tears, until one of the children escaped, ran to the road and flagged down a car. She was hysterical, saying terrible things about the house. That's when the state finally investigated properly. Which child was it? The one who escaped? The older girl. Sarah, I think her name was. She was maybe 6 or 7. Brave little thing, saving all those other children by running away. Sarah. Sophia. My sister had been the one to finally stop it, to save everyone, including me. What happened to the Chens? I asked. They disappeared before charges could be filed, took their money and vanished. State never found them. Margaret shook her head. Those poor children, all scattered to different homes, told to forget what happened. But you can't forget trauma like that. It stays with you. After we left Margaret's house, I sat in the car unable to speak, processing everything. Dante drove in silence, giving me space, occasionally glancing over with concern. I need you to understand something, he finally said as we neared Seattle. What happened to you and Sophia? It wasn't your fault. You were babies, children with no power. The adults who should have protected you failed. But you survived, and Sophia survived. She built a good life despite that terrible start. Did she? Or was she just running forever, never really escaping? She found love. She married me, built a home, had years of happiness. Yes, she kept secrets, but she also lived. That's surviving. He pulled into the airport where his plane waited. Emma, I know this is overwhelming. Take time to process it before you decide what to do next. What's there to decide? Whether you want to keep searching, whether you want to find the Chens, get justice, understand more. He turned to face me fully. Or whether you want to do what Sophia did, accept that you survived, and move forward with your life. I don't know what I want. Then don't decide yet. Come back to New York with me. Stay a few more days. Let's sit with what we've learned before we decide if we need to know more. I agreed, too emotionally exhausted to argue. On the flight back, I fell asleep against Dante's shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't have the nightmare. Maybe because I finally understood where it came from, or maybe because I finally wasn't alone with it. When we arrived back at his penthouse, it was late. Marie had left food in the refrigerator, but neither of us was hungry. We sat in his living room, the lights of Manhattan spreading out below us, not speaking. Thank you, I finally said, for helping me find answers, for being there when I broke down. You don't need to thank me. I needed answers too, and you gave them to me. He looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Emma, I want you to know, you're not alone anymore. Whatever you decide to do with this information, whatever happens next, I'm here. You're Sophia's sister. That makes you family to me. I barely know you. I know, but I lost Sophia, and I'm not losing you too, even if that just means being someone you can call when the nightmares come back. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Stay in New York, at least for a while. Let me help you process this. I have a life in Seattle, a job that barely pays your rent. I checked. At my expression, he shrugged. I'm thorough, remember? Emma, you're living paycheck to paycheck in a city where you have no family, no real connections. What if you stayed here instead? I have contacts in the art world. I could help you get a better job, something that actually uses your degree. You could stay in this guest room as long as you need. That's too much. It's not nearly enough to repay what you've given me. Answers about Sophia, understanding about her past, a connection to the woman I loved. His dark eyes held mine. Please, let me do this. For Sophia. For you? I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries with this intense, grieving billionaire who was offering me everything. But I was tired of struggling alone, tired of having no one who understood where I'd come from. 1 month, I said. I'll stay 1 month. Then I'll decide what comes next. His smile was brilliant. 1 month. That's all I ask. The month turned into 2, then 3. I told myself I was just taking time to process everything we'd learned. But the truth was more complicated. I was getting comfortable in Dante's world. Too comfortable. He'd kept his promise about helping me find work, connecting me with a gallery in Chelsea that needed a curator. The job was perfect, challenging, well-paid, using skills I'd thought would go to waste. I moved from his guest room to my own apartment in the same building, a smaller unit he claimed was sitting empty anyway. We fell into a routine. Coffee together most mornings before work, dinner several nights a week, sometimes at his place, sometimes at restaurants where everyone knew him and treated him with a respect that bordered on fear. We didn't talk about Sophia constantly, but she was always there, the connection that had brought us together, the ghost that still haunted his penthouse. You've barely changed anything, I observed one evening, looking at photos of Sophia still displayed throughout his home. Her things are still here, her art, her books, even her coffee mug in the kitchen. I can't let go yet. He refilled our wine glasses. Everyone tells me I should pack it up, move on, but she was your wife and you loved her. You don't have to rush grief to make other people comfortable. I picked up a photo of them at their wedding, both so happy, so unaware of how little time they'd have. Can I ask you something? Did you ever suspect that she was hiding something? Sometimes. He sat beside me on the sofa. She'd have episodes where she'd become distant, unreachable. I'd find her crying and she'd say it was nothing, just old memories. I thought she meant dead parents, not... He gestured vaguely. Not all of that. She was protecting you. From her past, from the darkness she'd survived. I wish she'd trusted me with it. I would have understood. I would have... His voice broke. I would have loved her anyway. Maybe even more for surviving it. She knew that. I think that's why she married you. I set down the photo. Dante, can I ask you something personal? Anything. Why are you really keeping me around? Is it just about Sophia, or is it something else? He was quiet for a long moment, swirling his wine. At first it was about Sophia. You were my connection to her. My way of understanding the woman I'd married. But Emma, these past months, you've become more than that. You're not just Sophia's sister. You're my friend. Someone I trust. Someone I can talk to about things I can't discuss with anyone else. Things like how sometimes I still expect her to walk through the door. Like how I'm angry at her for dying, for keeping secrets, for leaving me with so many questions. Like how guilty I feel for being angry at a dead woman. He met my eyes. You understand. Because you lost her too, even though you never knew her. We're both grieving someone who was a stranger in different ways. That's very honest. I'm always honest with you. It's one of the few things I can control in this situation. He shifted closer. Emma, I need to tell you something. About why I'm really researching Sophia's past so obsessively. I thought it was for answers. Partly. But also, he pulled out his phone, showing me an email. 2 months before Sophia died, she set up a trust fund. Significant money, earmarked for a biological family member if one should be found. Her lawyer contacted me after your donor profile matched. The money is yours if you want it. I stared at the numbers. Enough to never worry about rent again. Enough to change my life completely. She left this for me, but she didn't know I existed. She knew someone might exist. Someone from her past, someone she'd been separated from. She wanted them taken care of if they ever appeared. His expression was complex. That's when I realized how much her past haunted her. She couldn't talk about it, couldn't face it. But she was preparing for the possibility that part of it might resurface. I don't want the money. That feels wrong. It's yours. Sophia wanted you to have it. But Emma, there's something else in the trust documents. A letter she wrote, sealed, and only to be opened by the biological family member if they were found. He pulled an envelope from his desk. I haven't read it. It's addressed to someone named Emma. My hands shook as I took the envelope. My name in Sophia's handwriting. She'd known my name, even though we'd been separated for 26 years. I opened it carefully, pulling out several pages covered in elegant script. Dear Emma, it began. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you've been found. I've thought about you every day for 28 years. Wondered what happened to you. If you were safe. If you remembered me. I hope you don't remember. I hope you were too young to carry the weight of that place. I'm sorry I never searched for you. I was too afraid. Afraid that finding you would lead them back to you. Afraid that I'd bring darkness to whatever light you'd found. The Chens destroyed so much, and I couldn't risk them destroying you too. But I never forgot. I painted gardens for you in that terrible attic. I sang you lullabies when you cried. I promised I'd come back for you, even though I was only 4 and had no power to keep that promise. When the state took us away and separated us, I screamed for you until they sedated me. You were my baby sister, and losing you was losing the only good thing in that hell. I hope you've had a beautiful life. I hope someone loved you the way you deserved. I hope you're reading this as a happy, healthy adult who doesn't need my money or my apologies. But if you're not, if you're struggling or lost or carrying scars from that place, please use this money to heal. Build the life we both should have had. And if you've met Dante, if he's shown you this letter, know that he's a good man. The best man I've ever known. He loved me despite my secrets, despite my past, despite the parts of me that were broken by what we survived. Trust him. Let him help you. You're not alone anymore. I love you, little sister. I've always loved you. Sarah. I was sobbing by the end, clutching the letter to my chest. Dante pulled me into his arms, and I cried against him the way I'd cried in that abandoned house, grieving for the sister I'd lost, for the childhood we'd both survived, for all the years we'd been apart. She knew my name. I managed through tears. She remembered me. Even after everything, she remembered. Of course she did. You were her sister. Her baby. He held me tighter. Emma, I'm so sorry. Sorry you lost her before you could meet her. Sorry you both suffered. Sorry I can't fix any of it. You're fixing it now. By being here. By helping me understand. I pulled back to look at him, and something shifted in the air between us. We were too close. His hands still on my back, my fingers gripping his shirt. His dark eyes searched mine, and I saw the moment he realized it too. This wasn't just about Sophia anymore. Hadn't been for a while. Emma, he breathed, and the way he said my name made everything complicated. We can't, I said, but I didn't move away. You're grieving, Sophia. I'm her sister. I know what it is. Trust me. I know all the reasons this shouldn't happen. His hand came up to cup my face. But I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting to know everything about you. To make you smile. To take away the pain in your eyes when you think about Sophia. That's not love. That's transference or grief or... It's all of those things. But it's also real. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. I tried to fight it. Told myself it was inappropriate. That I was just projecting Sophia onto you. But Emma, you're nothing like her. You're yourself, strong and kind and brave in ways that have nothing to do with my dead wife. And I'm falling for you despite knowing I shouldn't. Dante. He kissed me, and I let him, and it felt like both a betrayal and the rightest thing in the world. His lips were soft, tentative, asking permission with every movement. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his hair, months of tension and connection and complicated feelings finally breaking free. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Tell me to stop, he murmured. Tell me this is wrong and I'll back away. I'll be just your friend, nothing more. I can't tell you to stop, because I've been falling for you too, and I've been hating myself for it. I met his eyes. But Dante, this is complicated. I'm Sophia's sister. How do we navigate that? Carefully, honestly, together. He kissed me again, softer this time. I loved Sophia. I'll always love her, but she's gone. And you're here. And life is too short to deny what we feel because it's complicated. We spent the night talking, kissing, processing what this meant. By morning, we'd agreed to try, slowly, carefully, keeping it private until we figured out what we were doing. But 3 months later, when I moved out of my apartment and into his penthouse permanently, it wasn't private anymore. People talked. The art world gossiped about Dante Moretti's new girlfriend who looked just like his dead wife. I heard the whispers, saw the speculation. They think I'm a replacement, I told him one night, that you're using me to keep Sophia alive. Let them think what they want. I know the truth. You know the truth. That's all that matters. He pulled me close. You're not Sophia, Emma. You're yourself, and that's who I love. The fact that you're her sister is just how we met, not why I'm with you. A year after I'd first received that donor registry email, we stood in front of Sophia's grave together. I'd never been there before. Hadn't felt I had the right until Dante had finally convinced me. Tell her, he said gently. Whatever you need to say. I knelt by the headstone, tracing her name. I wish I'd known you. I wish we'd had more time. I wish a lot of things that can't be changed. I took a breath. But I want you to know I'm taking care of him. Your husband, your Dante. I'm loving him the way you loved him. And I think you'd be okay with that. I hope you would. Dante knelt beside me, placing flowers on the grave. I loved you, Sophia. I'll always love you. But I'm also in love with Emma. And I think you'd understand. You told her to trust me in that letter. I'm trusting that you meant for both of us to find happiness, even if it's with each other. We stayed there for a while, both grieving and celebrating, saying goodbye and hello at the same time. When we finally left, Dante took my hand and I squeezed back. Thank you, I said, for finding me, for giving me answers about where I came from, for loving me despite how complicated everything is. Thank you for being brave enough to get on a plane for a stranger, for helping me understand Sophia, for becoming the most important person in my life. He kissed me softly. I found you because of her, but I love you because of who you are. 6 months later, he proposed. A year after that, we married in a small ceremony with photos of Sophia present. Not as a ghost between us, but as the woman who'd brought us together, the sister and wife we'd both loved and lost. I never found the Chens. Dante's investigators searched, but they'd vanished completely. Part of me was relieved. Justice might have been satisfying, but it wouldn't erase the past. All we could do was build something better in the present. The trust fund Sophia left became a foundation supporting foster children and trauma survivors. We named it Sarah's Garden, after the mural she'd painted for me in that terrible attic. It felt right, taking money from darkness and using it to create light. Do you think she'd approve? I asked Dante at the foundation's launch. I think she'd love it. Love you. Love what we've built from the wreckage of her secrets. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. You know what the best part is? You matched her donor profile, and that match led you to me. Even in death, she was still protecting you, still making sure you'd be taken care of. Or she was making sure you wouldn't be alone after she died. Maybe both. Sophia was good at loving multiple people at once. He kissed my temple. I miss her, but I'm grateful for you, for us, for the unexpected family we've become. I leaned back against him, looking at the foundation that bore my sister's name, built from the money she'd set aside for a family member she'd never forgotten, and I thought about how strangely life worked. I'd signed up for a donor registry on impulse. That impulse led to a genetic match. That match led to a billionaire's door. That door led to answers, love, and a family I'd never expected to find. Sarah had promised to come back for me when we were children. She couldn't keep that promise in life, but in death, through a blood match and a trust fund, and a grief-stricken husband who'd loved her enough to search for answers, she'd finally kept her promise. She'd brought me home. 2 years after our wedding, I stood in the penthouse that had once been Dante's alone and was now fully ours, looking at the nursery we'd just finished preparing. Soft yellow walls, a crib that probably cost more than my first car, and along one wall, a mural I'd painted myself, a garden full of flowers, just like the one Sarah had painted for me decades ago. You're thinking about her, Dante said from the doorway, his hand resting on my very pregnant belly. You always get that look when you think about Sophia. Sarah. In here, she's Sarah. I leaned back against him. I was just thinking how she never got to have this. Children, a nursery, all the normal family things she deserved after what she survived. But she did have love. She had me, had a home, had years of happiness before the end. That's not nothing. He kissed my neck. And now she has a niece who'll know all about her brave aunt who painted gardens in dark places. You think it's a girl? I know it's a girl. I've known since the moment you told me you were pregnant. A daughter who'll have her aunt's strength and her mother's heart. His arms tightened around me. Have I mentioned today how grateful I am? For you, for this baby, for the life we've built? Only 3 times. You're slipping, he laughed, the sound warm and full of joy, so different from the grieving, intense man I'd first met. I'll do better tomorrow. For now, how about dinner? Marie made your favorite. We'd kept Marie on as housekeeper, though she'd become so much more, grandmother figure, confidant, keeper of family traditions. She'd known Sophia, loved her, and had welcomed me without reservation when I'd moved in. You're good for him, she'd told me early on. Mr. Dante, he was drowning in grief. You pulled him back to shore. He pulled himself back. I just held his hand. That's all anyone needs sometimes. Someone to hold their hand. Now Marie fussed over me at dinner, making sure I ate enough, scolding Dante for working too much, treating us both like children who needed managing. After she left for the evening, Dante and I curled up on the sofa, his hand on my belly feeling the baby kick. Strong, he observed. She's going to be a fighter. Like her aunt. Like her mother. He kissed me softly. Emma, I need to tell you something. About the Chens, I stiffened. We'd stopped actively searching for them years ago, focusing instead on healing and moving forward. What about them? My investigator found them. Richard Chen died 5 years ago. Susan Chen is in a nursing home in Arizona, advanced dementia. She doesn't remember anything, including what they did to those children. His expression was complicated. I thought you'd want to know. That chapter is closed. They can't hurt anyone anymore. I should have felt relief, or satisfaction, or something. Instead, I just felt empty. So they got away with it. Lived full lives while the children they damaged carried scars forever. Justice doesn't always look like we want it to. But Emma, they didn't win. You survived. Sophia survived. You both built good lives despite them. That's the best revenge, living well. Is it enough? It has to be, because it's all we have. He pulled me closer. I'm not going to let them take one more moment of our happiness. They don't deserve that power. He was right. I'd spent too much energy on ghosts of the past. It was time to focus on the future. The baby girl who'd arrive in 2 months. The foundation helping other children. The life Dante and I were building together. A month later, I went into labor 3 weeks early. Dante drove me to the hospital with the calm efficiency of someone used to handling crises, though I could see panic in his eyes. You're fine. The baby's fine. Everything is fine, he kept saying like a mantra. I know. You're the one who needs to breathe. I'm breathing. I'm perfectly calm. You're squeezing my hand so hard my fingers are going numb. He loosened his grip. Sorry, what if something goes wrong? What if I lose you like I lost out? You won't lose me. I'm not, Sophia. I don't have a heart condition. I'm healthy. The baby's healthy. And in a few hours, you're going to be a father. I squeezed his hand back. Trust me, okay? Trust that this time has a happy ending. 15 hours later, Sarah Sophia Moretti was born. 7 pounds, dark hair like both her namesakes, lungs that announced her arrival to the entire maternity ward. Dante cried when they placed her in his arms. This hardened businessman turned soft at the sight of his daughter. She's perfect, he breathed. She's absolutely perfect. She is. And she has an amazing father who's going to spoil her rotten. I watched him with our daughter, and felt my heart expand impossibly. Thank you. For what? For finding me. For loving me. For giving me a family when I thought I'd never have one. Tears streamed down my face. I spent 28 years alone, and now I have you and her and a sister's memory that finally makes sense. Thank you for all of it. He kissed me, careful not to jostle the baby. Thank you for being brave enough to answer the phone when a stranger called. for getting on a plane to meet someone you didn't know, for falling in love with a grieving man who came with a lot of baggage. Best baggage I ever inherited. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days, learning to be parents, fielding visitors who wanted to meet the baby. The art gallery sent flowers. Marie brought homemade meals. Even some of Dante's business associates appeared, these hard men cooing over an infant with surprising tenderness. "She's going to be so loved," I told Dante on our last night in the hospital, watching him rock Sarah while she slept. "By you, by me, by everyone who comes into her life. She'll never wonder if she's wanted. She'll never feel alone. She'll have every advantage we can give her." He looked up at me. "And we'll tell her about Sophia, about Sarah, about the brave woman who survived terrible things and still found ways to create beauty. We'll tell her she's named after 2 incredibly strong women, the strongest." When we brought Sarah home, the first place we took her was the nursery with its garden mural. Dante held her up to see it, explaining in a soft voice about her aunt who'd painted flowers in dark places. "This is your legacy," he told her. "Strength and beauty and survival. Your Aunt Sarah gave these gifts to your mother, and your mother is giving them to you." Sarah yawned, unimpressed by the speech, and we both laughed. She was just a baby, unaware of the complicated history that had led to her existence. But someday she'd understand. Someday we'd tell her the whole story. The organ donor match, the investigation into her aunt's past, the love that had grown from grief and complicated connections. For now, though, she was just our daughter. Loved, wanted, safe, the foundation grew over the next year, helping hundreds of children in situations like mine and Sophia's. We hired trauma counselors, funded therapy programs, created scholarships for former foster kids. It became Dante's primary focus after he stepped back from his real estate empire. "I've made enough money," he explained when people asked why he was cutting back on business. "Now I want to make a difference. For Sophia, for Emma, for all the kids who deserve better than what they got." On the 2nd anniversary of Sarah's birth, we held a dedication ceremony for the Foundation's new center, a beautiful building that would house support services for foster children and trauma survivors. The name above the door, the Sarah and Sophia Center. I stood with Dante and our daughter, looking at those names, and felt the weight of everything that had led to this moment. 2 sisters, separated by tragedy, reunited through death and DNA. One sister's legacy of survival, another sister's legacy of love, both creating something beautiful from darkness. "They'd be proud," I told Dante. "She'd be proud," he corrected gently. "They're the same person, remember? Sarah who survived, Sophia who thrived, both parts of one remarkable woman who brought us together. Best matchmaker I never met." He kissed me as photographers captured the moment, though her methods were unconventional. That night, after Sarah was asleep and we were alone, I found Dante in his study looking at old photos of Sophia. He did this sometimes, especially on meaningful days, revisiting memories of his first love. "I still miss her," he said without looking up. "Is that okay?" "Of course it's okay. She was your wife. You loved her. That doesn't disappear just because you love me now." I sat beside him, looking at the photos. "She was beautiful. She was. But so are you. And Emma, I need you to know. Loving you isn't a betrayal of her. She'd want this. Want me to be happy, want you to be loved. I truly believe that. I believe it too. Her letter basically told me to trust you, to let you help me. I think she knew somehow that we'd need each other. Or she just wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of if something happened to her. And I was her way of ensuring that." He closed the photo album. "Either way, I'm grateful. For her bringing you into my life. For you staying. For the family we've built." "Me too." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "Do you ever wonder what she'd think of us? Of Sarah? Of everything we've done with her foundation? I think she'd be happy. Maybe surprised that we ended up together, but happy that something good came from her death." He wrapped his arm around me. "And I think she'd love Sarah. Would spoil her rotten if she were here. Then we'll spoil her for both of us. Give her the childhood neither of you had. Deal." Years passed. Sarah grew into a bright, curious child who loved art and asked questions about everything. We told her about her namesakes gradually, in age-appropriate ways. Aunt Sophia, who'd been brave and strong, who'd loved her daddy very much before she died. As she got older, we'd add more details, help her understand the complicated legacy she carried. On what would have been Sophia's 40th birthday, the three of us visited her grave together. Sarah was 4 now, old enough to understand that some people we love aren't here anymore. "Mommy says you're my aunt," Sarah told the headstone seriously, "and that you painted pretty gardens when you were little. I paint too. Daddy says I'm good at it." I watched our daughter, so innocent and loved, talking to the aunt she'd never meet, and felt the circle complete. Sarah had painted gardens for me. I'd painted one for my daughter. Now my daughter wanted to paint, carrying on a tradition she didn't even know she was part of. "She has Sophia's talent," Dante murmured, "and your strength. Best of both of you. Best of all 3 of us. Don't forget your contribution." My contribution was genetic material and excessive worrying. You 2 did the real work. We left flowers and stood together, a family built from loss and love and the strange twists of fate that bring people together. I thought about that donor registry email, how one random genetic match had changed everything, how Sophia's foresight to include that trust fund provision had led her sister and her husband to each other, how even in death, she'd been protecting people, bringing them together, creating connections that lasted beyond her lifetime. "Thank you," I said softly to the headstone, "for Dante, for your foundation money, for the letter, for remembering me. Thank you for everything." Dante's hand found mine, Sarah's small hand in his other one, and we stood there as the sun set. A family created by loss, sustained by love, and forever connected to a woman who'd survived darkness to create light. 5 years later, Sarah was 9 and asking the hard questions. "Mom, why don't I have pictures with Aunt Sophia? If she died before I was born, how come you never met her either?" Dante and I exchanged glances across the dinner table. We'd known this conversation was coming, had prepared for it, but it still felt monumental. Our daughter was old enough now to understand the full story, or at least most of it. "Let's go to the living room," I said. "This is a story that needs comfortable chairs and hot chocolate." 20 minutes later, Sarah sat between us on the sofa, her favorite blanket wrapped around her, listening with wide eyes as we explained. How Aunt Sophia and I had been sisters but didn't know it. How we'd been separated as babies because of bad people. How a blood test years later had brought me to her daddy, searching for answers about his wife who'd died. "So you met Daddy because you matched Aunt Sophia's blood?" Sarah's quick mind was already processing. "That's so cool. It's like she introduced you even though she was already gone." "Exactly like that," Dante said, relief evident in his voice. "Your Aunt Sophia was the reason your mom and I met. In a way, she gave me the greatest gift. Your mother, and eventually you. But that's sad too. She never got to meet me." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I wish she could have met me." "Do you think she would have liked me?" "She would have loved you," I said, pulling her close. "You have her talent for art, her bravery, her beautiful heart. You're exactly the kind of niece she would have adored." "Tell me more about her, about when you were little together." So we did, sharing what little I remembered from Margaret's stories and the letter Sophia had left. About a 4-year-old girl painting flowers for her baby sister in a dark attic. About a brave child who'd run away to save others. About a woman who'd survived terrible things but still created beauty. Sarah listened to everything, processing it with the seriousness of a child old enough to understand tragedy, but young enough to still believe in happy endings. "So she was a hero," she finally said. "She saved you when you were babies, and then she helped you and Daddy find each other. She's like a superhero, except real." "Yes," Dante agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "She was exactly like a superhero. And you know what? You have her powers too, her strength, her kindness, her ability to create beauty even when things are hard. And I have her name. You have both their names. Sarah for your aunt as a child, Sophia for the woman she became. You carry both versions of her, the brave little girl and the strong woman." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can we visit her grave? I want to bring her some of my paintings, show her what I made." The next Saturday we made the trip to the cemetery, Sarah clutching a folder of her best artwork. She'd been painting obsessively all week, wanting to show her aunt what she could do. At the grave, she carefully arranged her paintings against the headstone. Gardens full of flowers, just like the ones Sophia had painted decades ago, though Sarah didn't consciously know she was continuing the tradition. "Hi, Aunt Sophia," she said seriously. "I'm Sarah, your niece. Mom says you liked art, so I brought you some of mine. I'm pretty good. Dad says I get it from you." Dante and I stood back, letting her have her moment. Watching our daughter commune with the aunt she'd never met, I felt the weight of Sophia's presence. Not as a ghost, but as a foundation. Everything we had was built on what she'd survived, what she'd planned for, what she'd set in motion with a trust fund and a letter. "Thank you," I whispered to the headstone. "For Sarah, for Dante, for the foundation, for everything. We're taking care of each other, just like you asked." A breeze kicked up, rustling the trees, and I chose to believe it was Sophia acknowledging me. Fanciful, maybe, but sometimes you need to believe in things you can't prove. When Sarah finished her one-sided conversation, we left the paintings there, a gift from niece to aunt, from one artist to another, across the barrier of death and time. On the drive home, Sarah asked, "Mom, do you think Aunt Sophia watches us? From heaven or wherever?" "I don't know, sweetheart. But I like to think she's proud of what we've built. The foundation helping kids like we were. You growing up happy and safe. Your dad and me finding love. All the good things that came from something so sad." "Like a phoenix," Sarah said thoughtfully. "We learned about them in school. They rise from ashes. That's like our family. Rising from sad things to make happy things." That's exactly right. Dante met my eyes in the rearview mirror, both of us moved by our daughter's wisdom. A phoenix family. I like that. That night, after Sarah was asleep, Dante and I stood in her room watching her breathe. The garden mural I'd painted glowing softly in the nightlight. "We did it," I said quietly. "We gave her the childhood we never had. Safety, love, a family that will never abandon her. We did it together. You, me, and Sophia's legacy guiding us." He wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Emma, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about the foundation, about Sophia's letter, about all of it." "What about it?" "I want to expand our work. Not just help foster children, but specifically search for separated siblings. Use DNA databases, genealogy tools, everything we can to reunite families torn apart by the system." He turned me to face him. How many other pairs of sisters are out there, never knowing the other exists? How many Emmas and Sophias are living separate lives when they could have each other? "Dante, that would be massive. The cost, the complexity. I have the money. We have the foundation infrastructure. And we have our story to show it's possible, that finding lost family can change everything." His eyes were bright with passion. "Let's do this. For Sophia, for you, for Sarah. Let's make sure other siblings don't have to wait 28 years to find each other." "You really want to do this?" "I really do. I've been lost before. When Sophia died, I thought I'd never find purpose again. Then you came, and Sarah, and the foundation work. Now I want to take it further. Want to create something that ensures what happened to you, and Sophia doesn't happen to others. Or at least if it does happen, we help fix it." I thought about it. The scope of what he was proposing, the resources it would take, the lives it could change. Then I thought about that donor registry email that had changed my life, and I knew he was right. Let's do it. Let's build something that helps siblings find each other. The Sarah and Sophia Sibling Reunification Project. Perfect. He kissed me deeply. "God, I love you. Your strength, your compassion, your willingness to take our pain and turn it into something that helps others." I learned from the best. Sophia survived horror and still created beauty. I'm just following her example. The project launched 6 months later with significant press coverage. The billionaire whose wife had died mysteriously, whose second wife turned out to be her long-lost sister, now dedicating millions to reuniting separated siblings. The media loved the story, which helped spread awareness and brought in cases from across the country. Within the first year, we'd reunited 43 pairs of siblings who'd been separated by the foster system, adoption, or family circumstances. Each reunion was filmed with permission and shared to encourage others to search. The videos went viral. Siblings meeting for the first time in decades. The tears and joy and instant connection that came from finding your biological family. We're making a difference, I told Dante as we watched the latest reunion video. Two brothers in their 30s who'd been separated at birth and never knew the other existed. Look at them. That could have been me and Sophia if she'd lived. It is you and Sophia. You're living the reunion she never got to have. And now you're making sure others get that chance. He pulled up our database. We have 200 cases currently being investigated. 200 families that might find each other because of what we're doing. Because of what Sophia started. This is all her legacy. It's all of your legacies. Hers for surviving, yours for thriving, Sarah's for continuing it into the next generation. He closed the laptop. Speaking of Sarah, she's been asking about the bad people from when you and Sophia were little. How much do we tell her? The truth, age-appropriate but honest. She's mature enough to understand that bad things happen but good people overcome them. I thought about it. Let's tell her together. Make it clear that the darkness is past, but the strength we gained from it is forever. We told Sarah that weekend. Sitting together in the garden behind our townhouse, Dante had bought a property with outdoor space once Sarah was born, saying she needed room to run and play. She listened seriously as we explained about the Chen foster home, the abuse, the separation, the way her aunt had saved everyone by being brave. So Aunt Sophia was even more of a hero than I thought, Sarah said when we finished. She was really little and she still saved people. Including you, Mom. Yes, she saved me. And in a way, by saving me, she eventually saved your dad too, brought him back from grief, which led to you. I pulled her into my lap. So her bravery 30 years ago is the reason you exist. The reason our whole family exists. That's a lot of responsibility. Being named after someone that brave. But Sarah didn't look scared, just thoughtful. I want to be brave like her. When I grow up, I want to help kids like you and Aunt Sophia. Work at the foundation, reunite families, make bad things become good things. You can do anything you want, Dante told her. But sweetheart, you're already brave. You're kind. You're strong. You stand up for kids who get bullied at school. You're already living up to your namesake. Years continued to pass. Sarah grew into a teenager, then a young woman, always passionate about the foundation work. She volunteered there throughout high school, and when she went to college, she studied social work with a focus on child welfare. I'm going to change the system, she told us during winter break of her junior year. Make sure what happened to you and Aunt Sophia can't happen to other kids. Better oversight, better placement procedures, better follow-up. You'll do it too, I said, pride overwhelming me. You have the passion, the drive, and the perfect name. Sarah Sophia Moretti, child welfare advocate. It has a ring to it. Dante and I watched her grow into exactly the kind of person Sophia would have been proud of. Strong, compassionate, dedicated to helping others. Our family had come full circle, from trauma to survival to thriving to giving back. On the 20th anniversary of the donor registry email that started everything, we held a major gala for the foundation. Sarah, now 22 and working full-time with us, gave the keynote speech about her namesake and our family's journey. My Aunt Sophia survived terrible abuse, she told the crowd of donors and supporters. She escaped, built a new life, and even in death, she protected her baby sister through careful planning. That sister, my mother, matched her DNA profile, which led to my father, which led to me. And now we've helped reunite over 3,000 sibling pairs who thought they'd lost each other forever. The audience applauded, many in tears, and I felt Dante's hand find mine. We did it, he whispered. We took Sophia's legacy and made it something that changes lives every day. She did it. We just carried it forward, together, as a family. He kissed my temple. Thank you for getting on that plane 20 years ago. For being brave enough to search for answers. For giving me a second chance at love and a daughter who's changing the world. Thank you for sending the plane. For being honest about Sophia. For loving me despite all the complicated ways our lives intersected. I leaned into him. We built something beautiful from something tragic. That's the best kind of legacy. That night, after the gala ended and Sarah had gone out with friends to celebrate, Dante and I returned to the penthouse. It had changed over the years. Less of Sophia's things on display. more of our shared life evident in family photos and Sarah's artwork. But her presence remained, woven into the foundation of everything we'd built. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked him as we got ready for bed. "Taking a chance on me, on us, despite how unusual the circumstances were?" "Never, not once." He pulled me into his arms. "You were the answer to a prayer I didn't know how to pray. Sophia brought you to me, and I'll be grateful for that gift every day for the rest of my life. She brought us together, past and present, loss and love. Two sisters separated by tragedy, but connected by blood, all leading to this. A family, a foundation, a legacy of turning darkness into light." "A phoenix family," he said, echoing Sarah's words from years ago, rising from ashes to create something beautiful. We stood by the window, looking out at Manhattan spread below us, and I thought about the journey. From a donor registry email to a billionaire's door, to a marriage that started with grief and grew into love. From a sister I'd never known to a family I'd never expected. Sophia, Sarah, had saved me twice. Once when we were children in that terrible house, and again when she died and left a trail of breadcrumbs that led me to Dante. She'd promised in her letter that I wasn't alone anymore, and she'd been right. I had a husband who loved me, a daughter who made me proud, and a sister's memory that guided everything we did. "Thank you," I whispered one more time, sending the words out into the universe. "Thank you for finding me, even from beyond death. Thank you for Dante, for Sarah, for this life. Thank you for being brave enough to survive, strong enough to plan for my future, and loving enough to never forget me." A gust of wind rattled the windows, and I chose to believe it was her answer, a sister's love, transcending time and death, saying she'd heard me, and that she was proud.